Angles and parallel lines. Let's start with a review of names for angles. Acute angles are the smallest angles and they're less than 90 degrees. Right angles are always exactly 90 degrees and they're formed by perpendicular lines. We show right angles with a little square in the corner. Obtuse angles are always greater than 90 degrees and less than 180 degrees. Straight angles are obviously straight and they have a measure of 180 degrees. Reflex angles are going to be more than 180 degrees. Two words commonly used with angles are complementary and supplementary. Complementary makes me think of the word corner, and corners are 90 degrees. So you need to have two angles that add the 90 degrees. That's what complementary is. Supplementary makes me think of straight angles. Supplementary means two angles that add to 180 degrees. Adjacent angles. Adjacent means next to. So adjacent angles are angles that are next to each other. And specifically, they have to share the vertex and they have to share a side. These two angles are adjacent angles. Knowing about vertical angles is super important. Vertical angles are formed when you have two lines that intersect. There are four angles formed. The angles that are across from each other are vertical angles and they are congruent. So if this one's 100 degrees, the one across from it is 100 degrees. If this angle is 80 degrees, the one directly across from it is 80 degrees. Vertical angles are always across from each other and they're always equal. Now we're going to take all that information about angles and learn about parallel lines with a transversal. Parallel lines are two lines that go forever and never touch. A transversal is a line that crosses the parallel lines. When a transversal crosses parallel lines, it forms a total of 8 angles. Now, if you know just one of these angles, let's say that this one's 40 degrees, we can figure out every other one of the angles. Use the idea of vertical angles and you'll see that the angle across from it is also 40 degrees. Recognize that the 40 with this blue angle together made a straight angle. They're supplementary. So 40 plus something has to make 180. So we can subtract and we find out that the blue angle has to be 140 degrees. Again, we can use vertical angles. 140 degrees. Across from it then, that angle is also 140 degrees. We've now found half of the angles. Alright, look at these parallel lines. They cross the transversal at the exact same angle, meaning that the 40 degrees we started with corresponds to the 40 degrees down and in the same position above that second parallel line. Then using vertical angles, we know the other one's 40. We know that this one's 140 degrees because of supplementary angles, and this 140 degrees is there because of vertical angles. Now there's actually names for all these angle relationships. The first one is corresponding angles. Corresponding angles are when you have a transversal crossing the parallel lines, and on the same side, you're going to have two equal angles. This 40 degrees will match with another 40-degree angle just above the second parallel line. Here's another corresponding angle. Here's 140 degrees, and then on the same side of that transversal, there's another 140-degree angle in the same position on the second parallel line. Those are corresponding angles. Corresponding angles are always equal. Another angle relationship on parallel lines is alternate interior angles. And interior means inside. So we're looking on the inside of the parallel lines. So we have 4 angles here. We want alternate interior angles. So on opposite, alternate means opposite sides of the transversal will have interior angles that are equal. So this angle, let's say it's 40 degrees, on the other side of the transversal, on the inside of the parallel lines, is another 40-degree angle. The other 2 interior angles are both 140 degrees. They're alternate because they're on opposite sides of the transversal. They're on the inside. They're also going to be equal. Alternate exterior angles are also equal. Exterior means on the outside of the parallel lines. So alternate exterior angles are going to be the angles that are the same on opposite sides of the transversal on the outside of the parallel lines. So if this one's 140 degrees, the alternate exterior angle that goes with it is on the other side of the transversal on the outside, and they're both 140 degrees. Alright, we also have 40 degrees as alternate exterior angles. Alright, here's an example. I got 2 parallel lines, and I know they're both parallel because they have arrows on them going in the same direction. And both of these parallel lines are crossed by a transversal, and that creates 8 angles. We know one of them is 70 degrees. And across from that, the vertical angle is 70 degrees. We can see that 70 degrees with this red angle form a straight line. So they're supplementary, meaning that it has to be 110 because they have to add to 180 degrees. And then across from that is 110 degrees because that's its vertical angle. Now, because these are parallel lines, the pattern of the angles from the first 4 will be identical to the 4 angles on the bottom 4 angles. 110 degrees has a corresponding angle down below. I can find the other interior angle. It's an alternate interior angle to 70 degrees. And then the final angle is an alternate exterior angle to this 70 degrees. Are these lines parallel? Well, obviously you can tell by looking, they don't even look like they're going in the same direction. They look like they're going to cross, so they're not parallel. Well, let's get some proof by finding the angles. Well, we can tell that if this is 100 degrees, then this angle has to be supplementary. It's 80 degrees. These 4 angles be 180, 180. And we'll see that it does not match the 70 degrees, meaning that these lines are not parallel. They don't share the same pattern of angles. Are these, specifically the blue lines, parallel? They look parallel, but let's prove it by finding the angles and seeing if the pattern holds. So 50 plus 130 gives us this angle, and then we see that the alternate exterior angle on the other side would be 130 degrees. Then we see on the right hand side that we've got 130 plus 50. That makes 180. These are all going to be matching angles, and they are going to be parallel lines. Finally, are these lines parallel? They look close, they look like they could be parallel, but let's check it. 120 degrees, its adjacent angle is 60 degrees. That does not match the 59 degrees that's corresponding. That means it is not parallel.